Hi, welcome to another edition of Professors Providing Professional Development. I'm Terry Lassane, and sitting next to me is
Karen Perry.
And this time we're going to do some book talks, but we're going to talk about picture books. Most of these are brand spanking new, but a couple old ones kind of made their way into the stack.
Right. And one thing we're going to talk about is we're going to attempt to not fall back on the things that people do a lot when they're talking about books, not just picture books, but any kind of book that they're reading. A lot of times people will say, this is a really great book. This is a funny book. It's cute book.
Okay, sweet
right.
book.
Now, the thing is fine. That gives us a little idea about a very vague idea of what the book's about or how the book is. But it doesn't really tell people anything. So we want to avoid those type of vague comments. So we're going to attempt to do that today. Even though, like I said, it's really kind of a habit sometimes to default to something like that.
But my rule of thumb is if you can use it to describe a kitten, you should not use it to describe a book.
There we go.
But like Karen says, we fall into those patterns sometimes. Oh, this is such a cute book. And then you hear yourself say it and you just want to smack yourself, smack your hand for doing that. So if you hear us do that, shame on us. We'll try to correct it immediately.
Okay.
Let's go.
So let's go. We're going to start. There we go. Technical difficulties. Who's surprised? I mean, every time there's something.
And it's a PowerPoint. You would think it was something much more complicated. So we're going to start with this book, A Hungry Lion or A Dwindling Assortment of Animals by Lucy Ruth Cummins. I must say that I fell in love with this book just because of the title, A Dwindling Assortment of Animals. And when you open the story, there is a lion and an assortment of animals that include the animals you see here. There's a little pig, a big pig, a penguin, a rabbit, a dog, a sheep, a turtle.
It's so creative how they've described these animals. It's like a pig and a slightly larger pig, a rabbit with floppy ears, and one that doesn't have floppy ears. I mean, they're just, it's unique how the story is laid out.
And part of what appeals to me then is the language that you can pass on to kids as you're reading something like this. It's just not just a litany of animals, it's a whole bunch. So here's how it starts. Once upon a time, actually this is the second double page spread. Once upon a time there was a hungry lion, a penguin, a turtle, a brown mouse, those two rabbits, one with ears that flopped and one with ears that did not, a frog, a bat, a regular sized pig, and a koala. You'll notice that the slightly smaller pig is missing from the book called The Hungry Lion. And you can kind of guess what's going to happen on several successive pages, but let me tell you that there are two surprising twists to this story. And again, a book that can surprise us after all the ones we've read is certainly a book we want to share with kids.
It's got that subtle humor and it, like Terry already said, great twists that make you just go, wow.
And it's got a blurb by John Klassen. So I automatically have some built-in love for that book.
So next we're going to talk about Nerdy Birdy by Aaron Reynolds. First of all, the cover is one of those things that, we say don't judge a book by its cover, but I think we've mentioned in a previous video, you really do a lot of times. And this cover really draws you in. This is just an example of one of the inside pages. So it's just, kind of like mid-story. Our Nerdy Birdie is a little bird that is he wears glasses that are too big and his wings are too small and he's allergic to bird seed. And so when he's with the other birds and they're hanging out at the bird feeder, he's at the ground having to get breadcrumbs. The thing is Nerdy Birdie doesn't fit in with the cool birds, which is the eagle and the cardinal and the robin. That's right. But then he realizes maybe they're not the best people to hang out with anyway, because then he finds a group of other nerdy birdies. But then there's another kind of layer to this story as well. This is another one that kind of has a second kind of, layer. Maybe these guys aren't the best people to hang out with either. And so really this is a great book about cliques and belonging and how it feels to be lonely. And how that can really kind of get you down. So, Nerdy Birdie. Oh, if you, okay, I'm going to go on to this one. I'll catch you if you fall. This is a circle story. So it starts at the beginning with, I will, oh, okay, well, no, this is not the very first page, but it says, who will take care of the boy? And the next second page here, I will, said his mother. I will hold him close and never let him lean too far. Then it goes on and on and on, different things. Who's going to take care of them both? Who's going to take care of the boat? Who's going to take care of the star? And then finally, with a circle story, of course, that ends with what was on the very first page, which is who's going to take care of the boy? Well, he ends up he takes care of something at the very end. And if you get by the title, I'll catch you if you fall, they're talking about a star, just like, I'll catch a falling star. So a circle story, one of those, it would be a great story to use in your class, to use as a mentor text, to have your students then write a circle story. Very good and easy model to follow for something like that.
And the next book we're going to talk about is a cumulative tale of sorts, and that also is a great mentor text, because if you're familiar with The House That Jack Built and cumulative stories like that, then you know that things keep getting added to the story a little bit at a time. So The Wrong Side of the Bed is the story of a girl who wakes up one morning and her hair is all snarly and she's missing a slipper, and she can tell it's going to be a one bunny slipper kind of day. And as the story kind of goes on, she can tell it's going to be a one bunny slipper, a prickly kind of day, a stained kind of day. You can see the animals kind of trying to help her have a better day, but instead of really helping, they're causing more problems. But of course, by the end of the day, everything is okay. She has learned how to deal with missing bunny slippers. She's learned how to deal with snarled hair. And we've had just a wonderful romp with a whole wide array of different animals who should never be in her bedroom, but somehow are, including the octopus feeding the hedgehog, the bear licking the sticky syrup off her paw. There's lots of kind of funny things that are going on in the story.
Next, we have More Than Enough, and Terry let me know that today is its book birthday, so it just was released today. It's a Passover story, and it provides a lot of information. It gives it's a tale of a mother and two kids, and kind of takes them through a day where they go to the market and get some things that they need, and they pick up a little kitten along the way. But basically, it kind of gets them through preparations for their celebration to celebrate Passover. And so, they go home with Dad, and then they get ready and they dress up and get with family. And then it kind of walks you through what they do at dinner, opening the door for Elijah, the types of foods that they eat and what they're symbols for, the tradition that you go through at dinner, and the games that they play. And on every page is listed the word, I'm going to say Daenu. I don't know that that is correctly pronounced. There's not a pronunciation guide in the back, but there is a definition, so that's great with the author notes. But however, that's a Passover song, and so on every page that word is there, and then at the very back it tells you what that song is for. And so it would have been enough. And then the very back page is the actual song itself, along with the sheet music printed on the one of the end papers.
And Dayenu means it would have been enough. And the idea at this Passover celebration is they always have more than enough. They share with neighbors. They share with people outside of their faith community, which I think is another just wonderful kind of unspoken message in here. And as I shouldn't say as Caron and I are getting ready to celebrate Easter and talking about Easter eggs and Easter baskets and Easter bunny and Easter service, it's nice to say we don't all share the same culture, the same custom, that we need to look at how different cultures and customs are celebrated throughout the world. And so More Than Enough is just a wonderful, easy way to do it. Wonderful glossary at the end and an author's note as well that talks about some of the pieces of this celebration. But yes, we would have liked a pronunciation guide, and we're sorry, April and Katie, if we said that word wrong. We're sure that you will let us know that.
Oh, here's an inside page. I forgot that I put those on every one of them. So there you go. The illustrations are they're perfect for this story. It gives a great feeling for it. Oh, it's warm. I mean, it matched well with the text.
And here are illustrations that go at the other end of the spectrum. This is Laura Vaccaro's Seeger, who won the Caldecott for Green, working in a fairly familiar territory. It's I used to be afraid. I used to be afraid of spiders, but not anymore. I used to be afraid of change. I love that one. On each page, there is a die cut. It's a little hard to see in this very flat picture here, but it's actually Karen's going to point to it, going to circle it, or there you go. It's right there. And it then leads into the next page that talks about but no more and why she's no longer afraid of change. I really love how this book makes it seem easy to conquer your fears. You get a die cut out on each page. They're very different depending on what it is. I used to be afraid of mistakes, but not anymore. I used to be afraid of the dark, but not anymore. I used to be afraid of shadows, but not anymore, because they all, when you look at them closely, form very comforting kinds of shapes, very comforting kinds of situations. So while the colors are very different from More Than Enough, there's still that reassurance that things will be okay. And love those kinds of things in books, especially for young readers.
Okay, hold on now. Okay.
I love this story. I love all things Beatrix Potter. I always have. I'm a huge fan of her work, have been since I was a young kid, of course. And this is Beatrix Potter and the Unfortunate Tale of a Borrowed Guinea Pig by Deborah Hopkinson and Charlotte Volk. And again, sorry if I'm slaughtering those names, but it's the story of Bea Potter, who, of course, loved rabbits, rabbits of all kind, any kind. She was a naturalist. She studied nature. She did lots of sketches of wildlife. And of course, Peter Rabbit, we know how that began as a series of letters to her nanny's sick child. This is the story of her wanting to do some sketches of a guinea pig. And so she had to borrow one because she didn't have it. And of course, you can tell by the title, The Unfortunate Tale of a Borrowed Guinea Pig, that things don't go according to plan. What I love about this story is that you learn an awful lot about Beatrix Potter. You learn about how she came to do her work, and you also get a sense of seeing her. Here in this illustration, you see her walking her first bunny, whose name was Benjamin Bouncer. Later came Peter Piper. And so you begin to see the origin of some of her stories by looking at the interior pages and the interior story here.
Next, we have Dylan the Villain. And Terry and I both love this book. And speaking of language and being something that we love in these stories, this one has it on every page. There's something to love about this book and the language. Well, let's see, the family are the Snivels, his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Snivels, and they have a baby. And it's like they were minding their own business when they happen to have a baby, is the way it starts. And so the doctor says, well, congratulations, you have a healthy little supervillain. And so the thing is they know he's a villain. Their whole family has had lines of villains. And Terry, why don't you share some of these great ways that they have described these villains in the family?
They've got Aunt Winifred Snivels, who's a rotten apple. They've got Cousin Sylvester Snivels, who is a rogue. Sissy and Sid Snivels, who are scoundrels. And great-great-grandpa Snivels, who's just a bad one. So you've just got to love it. And then now, of course, they have Dylan, who is a super villain.
Yeah. Now, Dylan does have something, every superhero / supervillain, they have kind of something that is their kryptonite, we'll say. And he does have that. And the thing is he is allergic to purple parsnip preserves. And it causes him some problems throughout this story. But, however, he goes to school, and as you can see on this inside picture, it's Astrid Rancid's Academy for the Villainous and Vile. And there he thinks he's going to be the baddest of the bad, and he realizes that that is not the case when he gets there. In fact, the person that always seems to outdo him is, we love her name too, Addison Van Malice. She outdoes him in everything. But he doesn't let it get him down. He keeps trying and trying and trying. And there again, the end of this book, a wonderful twist. Again, I think it's a funny ending. I didn't expect it. So it's great. What did I just say? It's great. Okay, so I won't say that. I'll take the erase. Raybot by Adam Watkins. First of all, Raybot is adorable. I love the illustrations, and the thing is it is just a wonderful friendship story.
See, she almost said cute, but she caught herself, so we're going to give her credit for using the word wonderful instead.
Okay, but that wonderful's not good either. It's a friendship story. Raybot's lonely. He's sick of playing by himself. He lives all alone in a junkyard, and he doesn't have any friends. But one day he finds a flyer. And it says, "Your puppy deserves the best because he's your best friend." And so when he sees that, he sees a best friend. And he decides to come up with a plan to find his own best friend. And this is an ad for dog treats. So it's in the shape of a bone. However, the ad is torn to where he cannot see what a puppy looks like. All he knows is that the best friend, the puppy, says bark. And so he goes out on a quest. He makes himself a bone out of spare metal that he finds around the junkyard, and he leaves home with a plan. And he comes across a multitude of animals on his quest. And every time he comes across these animals, he'll go bark, and hoping they'll respond back with bark. So he knows that that is going to be his best friend. But of course, the horse says neigh, the goat says bah, the oink and moo, and so it goes on and on and on throughout the whole story until he finally finds his friend. And the little parrot works into the story too, because you know what parrots do, so he might be confusing for a little while.
So get your hankies out, folks, because we're going to finish with 2 books that will evoke some response. I can say that definitely about Ida Always, because we just finished sharing this with 2 of our department colleagues, both of whom then reached for the Kleenex and wiped tears away. It was not our intent to make them cry. It's the book that makes them cry. Ida Always by Caron Levis and Charles Santoso is based on the true story of 2 Central Park polar bears, Gus and his best friend in the world, Ida. Ida was always there. Whatever he did, Ida was right there, always. You can see this repeated through the text. And one day she sleeps in longer than normal. She doesn't seem to have the same verve that she's had in the past, the same amount of energy. And his keeper comes to him and tells Gus that Ida is very sick. And there usually is a way to make sick bears better, but this time it just can't happen. And one day, when her body stops working, Ida would die. Sonia's voice was soft. Gus decides that he's going to make the most of the time that they have together. It is exquisite. It is heartbreaking. Anytime you have a book that deals with loss, and it evokes that kind of response from you, you know that it's doing it. And how is it doing it? It's doing it through the wonderful illustrations. See, I just said wonderful. It's doing it through the illustrations that let you see the personality of Ida and Gus, which I really like to see. And through these wonderful way that the phrases work. And I do like that repetition of Ida was right there, always, because that is the hope of a book like this.
And this book does end on a very hopeful note.
Yeah, and you have to have hopeful notes when you're dealing with kids. And finally, I think Karen and I have decided this is just our favorite book of a long time. This is The Night Gardener by the Fan Brothers. Everything about this book is just an adventure, from the when you pull the cover off, what you're left with, the end papers, and the fact that you've got this double page spread before you even get to the title page. You see the dedication page right there for mom and dad. You see a page that's going to lead you to the title page, and you get to see part of what transpires in the art in this story, which I think really moves this story along. You get to see it move from this black and white to this kind of dark green, blue kind of situation. And eventually the colors change throughout the book to let you kind of understand what's going on. It's the story of a young boy named William who lives at the Grimlock Orphanage. And you can see that building in the black and white side. And one day he sees a man that he's never seen before. And he decides that's really rather strange. And he wakes up the next day, and outside the orphanage, where there used to be a tree, there's now a tree, but it's in the shape of a wise owl. William watches what's happening night after night, the trees taking different shapes, and he decides to follow this old man. And he sees him spread out his instruments of creativity. And the man notices that he's been followed and invites William to help him. It's a story of love. It's a story of creating beauty where there is no beauty. It's the story of continuing on a tradition. It's a story that has several surprising pages in it. I read this story last week. I was in Pasadena School District in California, and managed to move several people who were listening to tears, which was not my intent. But it shows you what a powerful story it is when you simply hold the book up, turn the pages, and read it, and you watch how people respond. They understand what's going on here, and I think kids will too. I would tie this one to Grandpa Green.
Perfect.
By Lane Smith. I think it's just a beautiful piece to put together with it. It reminds me also of several other books. To me, it's a little reminiscent of Echo, one of the stories in Echo, one of the threads in Echo by Pam Eunice Ryan. I can think of lots of ways to kind of ladder this one up, but it's a remarkable book that has so much to offer to readers, and a book that I think they'll want to pore over time and time and time again.
It really also shows the importance of art and creativity, and how that can feed your soul, make your life better, pull a community together. Like Terry said, there are many, many layers and different ways to come at this book. You could do a whole lesson on just the art in this book, then the themes. I mean, it's just, there's so much you can do.
And talk to kids about topiary and why topiary is kind of attractive. Again, just got back from the West Coast, and my favorite thing about driving into Corona del Mar is that they have the middle of the road is decorated by topiary dolphins, and they dress the dolphins up according to the season. And this week they all had on green hats and green beads for St. Patrick's Day. At Christmas they have them carrying presents. I just love things that aren't what they appear to just be.
Well, we thank you for watching, sticking with us again. Check back next week. We'll upload something new. We don't know what it'll be yet, but like we always say, there's plenty to do. But we still want topics from you. So email us there and give us some suggestions for things you'd like to see covered.
See you next week.